Photoshop. It's Photoshop Top 40.
All right, here we are looking at this image from Stas Parov of image vendor Fotolia.com. And if you were with me for feature number 33, you'll recall that we used the calculations command in order to merge the red and blue channels to create this base mask right here. Now, our hair is in pretty darn good shape. We're going to be able to use this hair detail in order to establish bright white hair against a dark black background. But we have some problems with the arms and the dress area. We have very poor definition where the arms and the dress are concerned. Now, we're not worried about the face. I could switch over to the lasso tool, and I could just select this face region like so, and then press Alt Backspace or Option Delete to fill it with white, because white is currently my foreground color, just to send that detail away, because it needs to be white in the final mask. However, we need to come up with a better way to select the arm and dress details, and that better way is one of the finest selection tools in all of Photoshop. Lets you select anything down to the most minute detail, and that is the pen tool. So I'm going to go ahead and press Control-D or Command-D on the Mac to deselect that region, and I'm going to switch over here to the Paths palette, which allows me to store paths that I've drawn with the pen tool, and then I'll click on this body path in order to make it active. And you can see that we have this path that's drawn around the arms and the dress region. Now, I've created that in advance for you. I'm going to recreate some of these details so that you can get a sense of how the pen tool works. But first, let's switch back to the Channels palette, click on RGB so that we can see the full color image. No reason to see the mask at this point. And now I'm going to switch over to the arrow tool here, click on it to bring up the flyout menu, and choose the direct selection tool, which I call the white arrow tool because it's white, whereas the black arrow tool is black. And we have a keyboard shortcut of A for arrow. All right, having selected the white arrow tool, whatever you decide to call it, I'll go ahead and zoom in on this detail right here. And I'm going to marquee around some of these points like so, and I'm shift marking around a few others in order to select them. And then I'll press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac in order to delete those selected points so that we can redraw them using the pen tool. Here is the pen tool, by the way, and you can get to it by pressing the P key. And I'll start things off by showing you how to create corner points, because those are the simplest kinds of anchor points to create. All you do is you click to create a new point, and then you click again in order to connect those 2 points with a straight segment, continue to click in order to continue to add straight segments like so. And then when you get to the first point in the path and click on it, you close that shape. Problem is, with drawing these kinds of freeform polygons, they don't really represent any human forms. We as human beings and other animals as well are not a bunch of polygons walking around. So what we need is smooth contours. So this thing isn't going to do us any good at all. I'm going to switch back over to the black arrow tool. I'm going to click on this shape right here because the black arrow tool selects entire shapes at a time, and I'll press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac in order to get rid of it. Now I'm going to switch back to the pen tool. And I'll show you how to draw the other kind of point inside of Photoshop, and that's the smooth point. To make a smooth point, instead of clicking, you drag. So you click and drag like so. And where you started your drag becomes the anchor point, and where you end your drag becomes this thing called the control handle, which stretches at the segment in order to cause it to curve. Notice that there's another control handle going the exact opposite direction of the first one, and that is going to establish a nice smooth contour at this location. All right, now I would click over here, let's say, and drag like so in order to pull out a control handle on either side. And notice that I'm moving forward through the shape. So I'm moving, in my case, in a counterclockwise rotation around the shape that I'm drawing so that that previous control handle that's going in the opposite direction is curving the current segment. So you can see that segment stretch toward the control handle and then stretch back when the control handle comes closer to it. So the farther you stretch the control handle away, the more curvature you get. The shallower the control handle, the less curvature you get. And then I would just continue dragging along like so, and then I'd complete the shape. All right, so it's sort of a little floppy circle right there. Let's get rid of it. We don't want it either. So I'll click on it with the black arrow tool, press the backspace key or the delete key on the Mac. Here's what we want to do. We want to continue this path that I've already started drawing. I'll go get my pen tool. Now, this point right there has already been established as a corner point. So if I drag from it, I'll just pull out this single control handle like so. I'm not pulling out two control handles. And I'm going to drag it upward just so that we're following the contour of this arm. And then I will create another smooth point at this location right there. And I don't want to take that control handle too far in, but I do want to take that other control handle, the opposite one there, out quite a distance. And typically what you want to do is cover about 2/3 of the segment with the length of these little levers right there. Now, if you find that you've gone too far with one side of the control handle, because after all, they start off as being symmetrical, then you can press and hold the control key or the command key on the Mac. And what that's going to do is it's going to temporarily get you the white arrow tool. So with control or command down, you can now drag this point back without affecting the length of the opposite control handle. And then you would release the control key or the command key on the Mac and set about creating some more smooth points inside of this image. All right, I'll go ahead and create a small one down there. That is, those levers associated with the control handles are fairly small. Then I'll drag out big control handles at this location, midway up the arm. Now here we're presented with what's known as a cusp right there in the underarm. And what that means is it's a sharp corner that joins two curving segments together, or what will be two curving segments. And in order to get that effect, what you do is you drag out in one direction like so. And then midway, when you've got one of your control handles set up more or less correctly, it actually needs some work over there, then you would press and hold the Alt key, as I've done, or the Option key on the Mac, and that allows you to swivel this control handle in an entirely different direction. But you still have two control handles coming out of that single anchor point, and that's what's known as a cusp point. Now I'll press the Control key or the Command key on the Mac and drag this control handle back in a little bit, like so, actually quite a bit, I guess. And then I'll Control or Command drag this point upwards. Now, it's not necessary that you follow the contour of the image exactly correctly. You just want to get something that looks like a natural, organic, smooth contour. And, by the way, if you're going to cheat, which I am in this case because I'm not following things exactly, you want to cheat on the inside edge of this arm, for example, so that you select too little of the arm as opposed to selecting some of the background, which would give you a little bit of a color fringe. All right, then I'm going to go ahead and add another point at this location, and this is a smooth point as well. I'll Control or Command drag this guy back up a little bit. I will probably, at this point, I'll just go ahead and drag down like so, just a tiny bit, and then press the Alt key or the Option key and drag over to the side there. Drag here, press Alt or Option and drag down like so. And once again, the Alt or Option key is going to break the link between these two control handles so you can move the levers in independent directions. Now I'm going to drag here. I'll go ahead and perhaps drag at this location, maybe Control drag this down a little bit. Then I'll Alt click at this point in order just to get rid of this opposite control handle entirely. And then I'm just going to create a series of anchor points like so by clicking, which is going to give me a little bit of freeform polygon right there at that location around her waist strap or whatever that thing is. And then I'll go ahead and drag from that corner point in order to establish a control handle and drag from here to establish a control handle as well. And now we have created a path. Now what do we do with it? Well, let's go ahead and get the black arrow tool and click on that path to make it active. And then all you have to do to convert that path to a selection outline is go down to the bottom of the Paths palette and click on this icon right there, Load Path as Selection. Now we have a selection outline. I'll switch over to the Channels palette, click on that mask channel that we're in the process of creating there, and I'll press Alt Backspace or Option Delete in order to fill that selected area with the foreground color, which is white. And I'll press Control D or Command D on the Mac in order to deselect that area of the image, and we have now successfully selected the arms and the dress inside of this image thanks to the power and flexibility of the pen tool.